It's the last talk of the day. Has everybody had their caffeine? You want to stand up just for a second? Go ahead, stand up and stretch so you can, I don't know. At least you'll be stretched for the talk. So the title of my talk is Saving Rumi, Connecting to Ourselves for Sustainable Well-Being, and I'll unpack that as we go. That's Rumi, my son, in 2005. This is him on his third birthday, and this is him 2 months after he was diagnosed with leukemia. This is his brother Sky and he. And the reason why I'm putting this up is because our kids are what it is at stake. They are a really great reminder of what is most precious to us. And it is their world that we are monitoring and trying to caretake. Rumi, so in the title then, Rumi stands for your child. Stands for my other son, Sky. Stands for the poet Jalaluddin Rumi, who talks about the integration of the light and the dark, the heart and the intellect. It stands for the kids who were shot in Newtown. It stands for the kids who are dying of hunger, curable diseases because they don't have the money. So I actually want, for a couple reasons, to take a little bit of silence right now. One is because it's just nice. So you can just be quiet and close your eyes, or you can look at a carpet square, whatever you wish. I'm going to read you a poem and sing you a song, and I would invite you to stay in whatever repose you end up in, and then we'll continue with the talk. Kindness. Before you know what kindness really is, you must lose things. Feel the future dissolve in a moment, like salt in a weakened broth. What you held in your hand, what you counted and carefully saved, all this must go, so you know how desolate the landscape can be between the regions of kindness. How you ride and ride, thinking the bus will never stop. The passengers eating maize and chicken will stare out the window forever. Before you learn the tender gravity of kindness, you must travel where the Indian in a white poncho lies dead by the side of the road. You must see how this could be you, how he too was someone who journeyed through the night with plans and the simple breath that kept him alive. Before you know kindness as the deepest thing inside, you must know sorrow as the other deepest thing. You must wake up with sorrow. You must speak to it till your voice catches the thread of all sorrows and you see the size of the cloth. Then, it is only kindness that makes sense anymore. Only kindness that ties your shoes and sends you out into the day to mail letters and purchase bread. Only kindness that raises its head from the crowd of the world to say, "It is I you have been looking for," and then goes with you everywhere, like a shadow or a friend. It's a poem by Naomi Shihab Nye. This song was written for my son, who is actually doing very well now, and for my dad, who died of leukemia, and also inspired by the Walker protests in February. It was a Valentine's Day not so long ago. Just gotten out of the hospital, actually. Sorry for the clunkiness there. And so I got a little bit of... Don't die. We love you. We'll miss everything about you. This kiss is all we have. Finally time for dreams and breathing now. Finally time for dreams and breathing now. Long night again. Darkness. Sun is sleeping. Cold wind. We will tend the embers. Finally time for dreams and breathing now. Finally time for dreams and breathing now. We are here because we hear the silence. And we are here inside this frosty breath. We are here because we're growing wishes. We are here because they're warm inside our chest. And we are here because we're gaining wisdom. We are here because we harvest fire. We are here because we love you. Because our soul is hanging by a tiny rusty wire. Dear son, happy birthday. You rise from a darkness. Sunlight, a time for activation. Finally time for dreams and breathing now. Finally time for dreams and breathing now. We are here because we hear the silence. We are here inside this frosty breath. We are here because we're growing wishes. And we are here because they're warm inside our chest. We are here because we're gaining wisdom. We are here because we harvest fire. We are here because we love you. Because our soul is hanging by a tiny rusty wire. This spark becomes a sun. 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 And we are here because we hear silence. And we are here inside this frosty breath. We are here because we're growing wishes. We are here because they're warm inside our chest. We are here because we're gaining wisdom. We are here because we harvest fire. We are here because we love you. Because our soul is hanging by a tiny rusty wire. This spark becomes a sun. This spark becomes a sun. We are one. This is a hell of a transition to this slide. But it is because of these children and because of all that care that we have that I think we should consider this statement. Our current way of life is the largest and most unethical failure in human history. This is a list of problems, and they're all happening. Nightmare slide, right? You're just going to have to believe me on the fact that they're happening. These are past problems. There are new problems. On there are not the reemergence of infectious disease, the health consequences of 100,000 plus human-made chemicals, etc. We can imagine so. This list might be longer. So those past problems, 1 through 8, there's a title associated with that list. It's Jared Diamond's title, and he would call that list Causes of Societal Collapse, which is one of your quiz things. So now's the time. And the reason why Easter Island is up there is because, can you imagine this? In the moment of their greatest power, they built these statues. And about 80 years later, they cut down their last truffula trees, basically what happened at Easter Island. And they devolved into cannibalism, military coup, and a new world religion. Anyway, all of these things are happening right now, and societal collapse does happen. Could it happen to us? I mean, there are modern examples. Rwanda might be one, for example. So this is the way sort of the end game might look. If we look at so that's kind of how our culture is doing. That's one way you could look at it. It's a negative way to look at it, I admit. If we look at it on a metric that I think is very important, a metric called sustainable well-being, which, let me just describe it, is well-being divided by the resources it takes to get that well-being. Okay? Does that make sense? And more particularly, it's mental and physical health times the number of years you have those things, divided by something like ecological footprint. And I'll talk a little bit about that. So let's just pretend I would say this is society's goal. Period. It's to maximize sustainable well-being. How are we doing? The United States is 150 out of 178 countries, where 178 is bad. And it's not because we have good life satisfaction, we're happy, and we've got good life expectancy. Our ecological footprint is bad. Second only, at least at this time, to the United Arab Emirates. So we're really happy, but we're using a lot of resources to get that happiness. And let's go to that now. How many resources? Four planets worth of resources. This is just a reminder for you that we have one planet worth of resources. We use 4. So if everybody on the planet lived like we do, we would need 4 planets. And then we'd fill them up and we'd need 16 anyway. We outspend all our non-allies militarily, and providing adequate food, clean water, and basic education for the world's poorest could all be achieved for less than worldwide people spend annually on makeup, ice cream, and pet food. Here's another song for you. There ought to be like a dancing gnome or something for this transition. Yeah, dancing gnomes, which is partly what mindfulness is about. Watching those dancing gnomes. Yeah, I'm stupid, I'm fat, I don't like myself. Just watching it. All right. The Garden of Eden we left that night, when our ribs and our brains and our hearts learned how to fight. We invented self and other dark and light. Bad and good became black and white. Nothing is worse than the truth. Nothing is worse than the truth. Samson, he cut his own hair. Delilah took his eyes, she saw herself in his stare. Goliath, he threw back the stone. David lost his foot
but she's scared to lose her health care to do what she was hired to. Nothing is worse than the truth. Nothing is worse than the truth.
I like phrases that involve nothing because nothing's perfect. So you begin to wonder, what is nothing that's so perfect? So back to the largest failure in human history. How did this occur, and are we even aware of it? Like, I guess I want to show of hands. How many of you have had the thought before today? Wow, I have imbibed the wisdom of the largest failure in human history. How did this occur? Well, this is a psychologist's distillation of that, okay? And it fits the theme. It occurred because of disconnection from ourselves, each other, and the planet. So when I say saving Rumi, you can already tell I'm not talking about Rumi. I'm talking about whatever is most precious to you. Now I want to talk about connecting to ourselves for sustainable well-being. What I mean by ourselves is me, we, big we. So let's talk about me for a second. Let's talk about me. Let's talk about the individual, right? I want to point this quote out to you. We largely know how we need to change. How to deal with human emotions such as fear and greed is less simple, however, and these are really what prevent us from making progress. So I'll be talking about emotion technology. Carl Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. This procedure, however, is disagreeable, therefore not very popular. Yes, sign me up for that. I want to spend an hour looking at all these thoughts I have about how I'm, balding or something, right? But at least according to Carl Jung, that's enlightenment. That's being awake. And in this talk, it's called being connected to who you are. Very simple. Who are you? You're the whole enchilada in there. You're the stuff that says, damn, that was good. And you're the stuff that says, I don't like that. Here's what we do in our culture. I think this is what we train, okay? We've got some behavior, we'll call it behavior X. In this case, let's call it whining. And you'll note the irony of somebody in pain on a football field being accused of whining, okay? But let's just call it whining. And that makes me feel really bad, right? I feel bad that someone's whining. I don't like feeling bad. So what do? Well, I regulate. I attack that person. Wimp. Faker. And what happens is, I feel better. Whew, now that that's taken care of. Or what I could do is I could distract myself. Do a little retail therapy. And I feel better. Or I could, if life gives you guys, if you haven't heard this before, this is going to be this is wild, this is great, this is all you need to know in life. If life gives you lemons, okay, make lemonade. There you go. Go. Be happy. Right? Because that's all you have to do. You just have to make... So, seriously? This is like asking people oh, did you know that smoking is bad for you? Right? Well, quit. What, are you kidding me? It's perhaps it's end of the continuum, which I personally have a hard time with, is positive thinking, and I would call it pathological positive. Who could be against positive thinking? It's like being against world peace or something, right? But what I'm talking about is the positive thinking that says, if you really want a Porsche in your driveway, just manifest it. Right? Just manifest that Porsche. And what I would say is, I'm sorry, I'm not a god. I can't do that kind of stuff. I don't get to create things by manifesting them. So that's not much of an answer from my perspective. We could also distort reality, suppress things. There's such a thing called a repressor. Susan's husband worked on some of this work. These are people who say, me, I'm not anxious. And their physiology is jumping off the charts. They're like, oh! They're like, I'm not anxious, right? These are oppressors. There's all kinds of health consequences to that, but they're good at it. Now, someone talked before about canaries, and I want to reintroduce the canary. Canary, in my talk, is a noble bird. It is a bird who you take down to the coal mine, and you listen to the bird, right? Because when the bird falls over, if you're the miner, you're dead, right? I mean, you got to like hightail it out of there. But in our culture, what if we take all these things, right? We attack the bird. Stupid bird. God, I can't. Why did I get a defective bird again, Al? Right? Dead miner. Distraction. Ooh, look at that coal vein here. Okay. Dead miner. Make lemonade. You just put that sucker on a spit, roast it up, share it around, barbecued canary. Dead miner. Distort reality, suppress. You know. What canary? I don't see any canary. Pop quiz, just to drive the point home. Your hand is on a hot stove. You want to A, disconnect the nerves, or B, remove your hand quickly. The point is, emotion, even negative emotion, is information. That's all. It's just information. Just check it out, see what it's saying. Oh, like be careful around the stove, maybe. That could be what it's saying, right? Take your hand off. But we pathologize negative emotion to such an extent that we don't become familiar with it, and then when it comes up and whispers at it, we're like, ah! What are you? I don't like you. And we become totally unsophisticated, wimpy, fragile with dealing with negative emotion. Then what we do is we cut out, essentially, let's say, 50% of the information for any given situation. How good are you going to be at a situation, navigating it, if you've cut out 50% of the data? Like, yeah. Someone's like, yeah, right. That's bad. So the point is connecting with yourself. Like, this is not hard stuff in a way. It's just connect with who you are. The fact that we malign emotions generally, and negative emotion in particular, is due in part to misogyny. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus, but humans are from Earth, folks. We're all human. If I can't show up and be compassionate to my son, if I can't cry about my dad's death, if I can't mourn the fact that we had 3.5 years of cancer treatment, what kind of man am I? What kind of human being am I? If I can't set boundaries with someone, saying, this is not okay what you're doing to me, what kind of human am I? The point is, we have sort of taken the female parts of ourselves and the male parts of ourselves, and we've pathologized each other. And what we really need to do is be fully human. And that means both Venus and Mars here on Earth. So, if we go to we, right? Not just within my own skull, but beyond. I want to just say, and I've given some examples, disconnection from self equals disconnection from other. If I'm telling my son who's whining, right, I go, oh, you're making me feel bad. This is in my head. You jerk. Now I feel better. That's a total disconnection from what's happening for him. I feel really bad about this, Al. Don't worry, it's fine. I want to tell you a story. We were on a trip in Ocean City, Maryland. It was a trip whose whole purpose was for kids with life-threatening illnesses. We were on a boat, 4 families, 4 kids. 2 of those kids were going to die, and in fact have died. 2 of them were going to live, my son and 1 other. This is the context. Then we go to Jolly Roger's theme park, an amusement park. The woman, Hunter's mom, who had a brain tumor, and he's one of the kids who subsequently died. She was just talking to me, and here's what I did. God, she's kind of cold. That's what I did in my head. That's called the fundamental attribution error, folks. That's attributing to her what should be explained by her circumstances. And it's not just because I'm a jerk that I did that. I am a jerk. No. It's because that's what we do. We've been trained in our culture to make attributions about people, about individuals, when it's the circumstances that are really more responsible. It's a form of violence. And I, of all people, should have known better, right? I mean, it just shows you how profound and habitual this thing is. Talk about separation. Now moving slightly to how important the environment is on our own behavior, okay? We've talked about like environmental pollutants, so it's very articulate. This is from a psychological point of view. Adverse childhood events. You're abused sexually, physically, or emotionally. You're neglected, or there's crime in the home, okay? If that happens to that person, they are 2 times likely to have heart disease, almost twice as likely to have any cancer, 10 times more likely to use injected drugs. Now, what do? We go, oh, well, they're a drug user, right? Or somebody, right? Some of us do. We go, oh, drug user, right? But what we can tell you is these people are suffering for a reason, for actually very good reasons, for preventable reasons, for environmental reasons. And in this case, it's because they had adverse childhood events. And if we were sitting in their shoes, we would be doing the same thing. You remember Milgram, his obedience studies, white lab coat, trying to shock someone who's trying to learn words? Let me just review it. I'm a teacher, I'm the subject. I come into the study and I go, okay, what am I doing here, right? Lab coat from Harvard or something like that says, you're going to teach this learner, who's really a Confederate, in another room. You're going to teach him these word pairs. Every time he gets it wrong, you're going to shock him. Zzz, okay? And there's a machine. It's all laid out here, this machine, right? And it goes from 0, no problem at all, to almost certainly fatal. It'll kill you and everybody in a 1-block radius. I mean, I'm kidding, but it's just like really bad. So what this graph is showing you is that basically 65% of the people in this study, they kept obeying the order to shock this person who they don't know, to the point where they were screaming against the wall saying, stop, I have a heart condition, stop shocking me, right? They obeyed. And what I'm showing you here is that if you want to change that behavior, you don't admonish someone to get real and get independent. What you do is you recognize their interdependence. You recognize their interdependence with the context, and you change the context. For example, if I take someone's hand and I put it on the shock plate, what are the chances of me actually shocking that person? They go way down, right? Think about modern warfare. If I got to hit somebody over the head with a rock, much harder to do than press a button miles away and kill someone with some sort of drone strike or something, right? What the point here, and look at versus mirror neurons. We are wired, if you put somebody in a brain scanner and they're watching someone else get physical pain, their neurons light up, similar to the person who's actually experienced the pain. The same pain networks light up. It means we're wired for empathy, folks. We're wired to say, this person is suffering. My brain is telling me the same thing, and I know how that is. I'm suffering too. So we can either create environments that foster that and leverage it, or we can ignore, or we can create environments that make it almost inevitable that we're going to shock someone until they're screaming and kicking a wall. Other disconnections. Syngenta sells atrazine, which is linked to breast cancer, and aromatase inhibitors used to treat breast cancer. All right? That's a disconnection. We get rid of bisphenol A or lead or whatever, right? And what about bisphenol B? Now, I just made up bisphenol B, right? But, I mean, this is the point, right? Are we going to keep doing these campaigns? The answer is yes, we should, right? But at some point, it would be nice if we started to use the precautionary principle, right? Okay. We are not gods. We are interdependent humans. That's not just enough. That's a beautiful thing. Let's not spend so much time trying to be gods, trying to think we can control everything, and more time recognizing that we're vastly and intimately interdependent with everything. I'm not just talking about other people, right? I'm talking about trees. I mean, seriously, right? They stop, I stop breathing, right? That's interdependent. So that's where we get to the big we. One planet living. Imagine that. One planet living. For history, we've had all these isolated, local, sustainable solutions to life, right? People in these isolated valleys, you can imagine all these stars, right? Isolated valleys, figuring out, oh, this is what we should do. Oh, let's write a song about that. Okay, now we dance around the campfire and that, does something, and that's really cool for us because it makes us socially connected, which makes us able to, harvest the grapefruit or something, okay? All of that wisdom, for most of human history, was created in isolation and kept from each other, just, literally by geographic isolation. So too were the failures. Last couple hundred years, we've had a couple cultures take over. And what does that do? It dims the rest. It makes them extinct, or it makes them pale by comparison, right? Well, what are those cultures? They don't know anything. I want to tell you a really chilling story. North Africa, long, long time ago, a group of people who cut down all their forests. And what did they do with their forests? They built the greatest navy up until that point that the world had ever seen. And then they took that navy and they went and conquered everybody who was smart enough not to cut down their trees. That's a very problematic set of rewards and costs or incentives. It basically means survival of the worst. If I'm the one who's cutting down the last truffula tree, I get to go be rich, right? By conquering the people who are wise enough not to. So let's make the mistake of saying, well, we got McDonald's all over the country. We must be pretty badass, right? I mean, we must have it down. We got this thing down. Because that's not necessarily true. But there is a really incredible opportunity here, which I'm going to represent. Do you like my graphic? That's a mountain. Okay, that's a mountain. From this cultural perspective, from the world of PhDs, from people being interested and curious, from global communication, from people traveling, we have an opportunity for the first time in human history to look out over those valleys and see all those experiments. What can we do now? We can start to see what's worked and what hasn't worked, right? We can. It's an incredible opportunity. It's historic. This is the opportunity and the privilege of now. We need a science of this, says Donald. Says a voice of one. We need a science of this. This is what we need. You could say it's a science of us. I want to give you a little model. People heard about the open source ecology? How many people have heard about it? Great, just a couple people. Open source ecology, its goal is to develop a global village construction set. Okay? What is that? It allows for the easy fabrication of the 50 industrial machines needed to build a small, sustainable civilization with modern comfort. Okay? It is open source, modular, do-it-yourself, low-cost, high-performance platform. And their goal? It is a repository of published designs so clear, so complete, that a single burned DVD is effectively a civilization starter kit. Open source. Talking Linux, right? We're talking about people doing it because they love it. And because it's exciting to do this. But, hello! We can all geek out a little bit too much on the hardware, I think, especially as a psychologist. I want to point this out. Because there's people involved in civilization last time I checked. So we also need software, not just hardware. And what an equivalent project would be is understanding the necessary and sufficient social and emotional technology that makes it possible for people to cooperate peacefully in living a life of sustainable well-being. Okay. A model for the future needs not only new technology and a healthy ecology, but also people who are able to use these tools in a meaningful way. It needs people who have learned how to stay together even during conflicts, solving them in nonviolent and creative ways, and remaining committed to solidarity even in difficult times. Community knowledge is the foundation of social sustainability. And that brings us back to emotion regulation, connecting with ourselves and connecting with each other. So what I want to call this new science is open source life design. There's a t-shirt no, I'm just kidding. Open source life design. Phase 1 goal, distill the necessary and sufficient social technologies that can be applied flexibly and synergistically for local application. Harvest and study existing social technology solutions that maximize sustainable well-being. All of this is like a no-brainer. Like the research that we do in our lab, this is a no-brainer. How do these social technologies synergize with the hardware technologies to enhance sustainable well-being? We can measure sustainable well-being and the causes. We can highlight the successes, all with the goal of distilling the necessary and sufficient social technologies. Like, it would be wonderful to be able to stand up here and tell you, we have now figured out the 50 software solutions necessary for sustainable well-being. But I can't tell you that. Phase 2 is deploy this technology in test fields with corrective feedback. My dream team: psychologist, a medical person, environmental scientist, economist, anthropologist. These are people who already know how to do these things, right? But we do get siloed in our specialties. So I just wanted to give you a little appetizer about social technologies that I think are at least necessary. I don't know if they're sufficient. They're probably not, okay? Avoid the 4 horsemen. You know this? In your marriages, in your love relationships, in your work relationships, avoid the 4 horsemen like the plague. They are criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. And here are the halo things that we can do. Complain and fight early and often. How's that sound? Everybody's like, yeah, let's complain and fight early and often. Right on. What I would tell you is it's either a choice between complaining and fighting early and often, or waiting till all that stuff builds up and you scream like a lunatic about the toothpaste. Agreed upon short breaks. Things are getting a little bit riled up with my wife. On my good days, I go, okay, let's take a break. And on her good days, she says, okay. And we go back in 15 minutes. This is really cool. Did you know this? If you're in your life, you want positive to negative affect interactions in a ratio of 5 to 1. So you got a problem person in your life, you go like this: hey, how you doing, Sue? Great, me too. 1. Hey, how you doing, Sue? Good to see you. Looking good. That's 2. I got to build up 5 before I can have the negative interactions I always have with Sue. Neither invade nor abandon. Men, don't invade, don't dominate. Women, don't abandon self, right, in the name of caring for others. And I'm saying men and women because those are stereotypically, it's like what I see in my clinical practice. It's like I really feel like we train our boys to be narcissistic, to grow up to be narcissistic boys, and we train our women to caretake so much everybody else that they view it as selfish to take care of themselves. So, self-other balance. You can't take care of someone else if you're just like running on empty. Diversity, the right mix. The right mix, I'll tell you a story about this. New York City, I was at a mindfulness training. This cop gets up and he says, for all of New York City, we have 4 people to process the child pornography. Seriously? 4? You're going to digest that much societal poison with 4 people? That's crazy. And that's what we do all the time. We go, like, let's take all the people with this problem and let's put them in one place so we can hire someone like Donald to treat them. And they become friends, and they socialize. This is a very bad model in some ways. But if you put these people in communities, all of a sudden they can actually become valuable. At our co-housing community, we have an autistic woman. We have 2 women who can't talk at all. They talk in terms of emotion. They grunt, but what they're doing, they grunt emotion, right? Now, in truth, our community needs other resources to help make those people a part of our community. But it illustrates how that diversity, like when introduced in ways that are manageable, is fine. The only thing I want to say here is that criticism you never do, but complain and fight early, good. Stonewalling, that means, yeah, whatever. Or that break, that lasts weeks, bad, don't do it. But breaks, yeah, everybody needs breaks. Take a negotiated break. How do you do this, Donald? You do your inner work, right? So that I'm not so reactive when other people are, if my wife slips and she goes, you're such a jerk. She did a criticism. That's not good. But I can take a step back. I go, she doesn't think I'm a jerk. Probably. And I can respond in a different way. And the social supports that are necessary to make this happen. It's back to the influence of our social environment. If I'm stressed out working 70 hours a week, if I don't get enough sleep, if I'm drunk. These are all ways to reduce my capacity and make it almost impossible for me to do the non-habitual but more adaptive thing. So I'm going to talk about, I keep doing that. I'm going to talk about some solutions in a second. And so I'm dedicating this song to the things that can prevent us in some sense. It's actually the things that can make us want to solve things, and also the things that prevent us from solving them. There's nothing I would not give. There's nothing I would not give. There's nothing I would not give to save us. Just don't ask me to give up my phone. Without my mobile Facebook, I am alone. And texting while I'm driving is insane. But how else will I know if this water flowing down is rain? And rain washes all the pain away. Soaks into the dirt, so every time you turn around, food is growing higher, you can pick it off the ground. And you and me and all we love will live to eat another day. And that is why there's nothing I would not give. There's nothing I would not give. There's nothing I would not give to save us. There's nothing I would not give. There's nothing I would not give. There's nothing I would not give to save us. Don't take away my illusion of choice. That's precisely how I've earned everything I have. Don't take away the truth that I'm a chosen one. The dumb, they choose the shadows. The smart ones like me choose the sun. And sonic kisses all the pain away. We surf the earth into the sunrise every day. But it is getting hotter every year. We have some work to do right now, right here. And that is why there's nothing I would not give. There's nothing I would not give. There's nothing I would not give to save us. There's nothing I would not give. There's nothing I would not give. There's nothing I would not give to save us. I won't quit my status quo. It's the only way to pay the bills, you know. And giving up my latte, it's too late. And so it is I sow the seeds of hate. But love yourself, your neighbor, and everything. When self and other disappear, the wasp, he loses his sting. We're free to make some honey and we're free to make some wine. We're free to join the angels, help the fallen ones behind. We have freedom to be foolish, to be free of stupid things. We're free to join our hearts and minds so we can truly sing. There's nothing I would not give. There's nothing I would not give. There's nothing I would not give to save us. There's nothing I would not give. There's nothing I would not give. There's nothing I would not give to save us. Okay. So some laboratories and test fields that some of them exist, some of them don't. Co-housing, eco-villages, one-planet communities, and what I like to call castle. Do people know about co-housing? Is this like something now that everybody knows about? I guess raise your hands if you know about it. Yeah, okay. So these are intentional communities meant to balance privacy and cooperation. And so I'm just going to show you some pictures. This is a common house. Typically they have, they might have an office in there that people could share. They have dining in there. They have visitors' rooms, so you don't have to have, a separate bedroom for visitors in your own place, so each unit can be smaller. So these are just pictures of different communities. They look pretty good to me. Oh, sorry. There's camera action. Eco-villages are kind of a larger version of the same thing. This is Dancing Rabbit Eco-Village in Missouri. A guy named Dan Durica has said this, that they've reduced their footprint by 85%. They have a 200-plus acre backyard he shares with his friends, 5-minute walk to their pond. I would argue we get 80% of the fun and 80% of the utility out of modern life with about 15% of the consumption. Leaves us room for other fine things in life like watching fireflies, going for a quick swim before dinner, or taking long walks with friends. And at this point, I sometimes go, Dan, buddy, fireflies, really? Like, seriously, you think I'm going to enjoy fireflies? Like in my world, I'm going to enjoy fireflies? And that sometimes leads to the cocaine firefly tangent, which is related to what Adam was talking about, which is essentially if you train your brain on really fast-moving stuff that's really stimulating, your brain gets used to it and needs that before it gets its squirt of dopamine that it likes. So the radical hypothesis is, what if you train your brain to be bored? Mindfulness would be a good way of doing that. You train yourself to need less stimulation, and all of a sudden, your brain, seriously, right? Your brain goes, whoa, look at that firefly. Just what if? I'm just saying. Okay. Right. Tamara is a kind of it's a community in Portugal, but they synergize social and physical technology in an interesting way. They put a lake. Do you notice how in most valleys you put a road right there, right? Don't you? That's where you put your road, which is right in the middle of where your lake should be. Anyway, they started with one spring and they rehydrated the landscape. Now there's 7 springs. Good luck with the birth. So this is an area characterized by desertification. The desert is encroaching and they're reviving the landscape. They have a greenhouse and they take the waste heat, which is prevalent in greenhouses, store it in vegetable oil and use it for cooking and powering Stirling engines, which is this thing here, for water pumping and electricity production. So they also have a micro-biogas system built in 2 days, produces 2 hours of gas for cooking. For every bucket of kitchen scraps, some cow dung and stomach bacteria, produces liquid fertilizer as a byproduct. I wouldn't want to be eating that soup, but that's pretty cool. And they're the same people who talked about the social technology. Castle. One of the problems is that how many of you are going to move into a co-housing community or an eco-village, in the next year? Right, exactly. You're like, what, are you kidding me, buddy? So having witnessed that very understandable feeling, this is something that may work better, a community-supported sustainable lake house. That is, if it's a one-planet living test field with multiple entries for people ranging from vacation to living there, permaculture design, which I didn't get a chance to talk about, with critical social covenants, which would be those necessary and sufficient social technologies, and a lot of freedom. And I think... All right, so here's the summary. To maximize sustainable well-being, we need interdependent humans. We need to recognize that we are interdependent humans. We do that through inner work, mindfulness, therapy, prayer. We need to realize that we think, do, and feel what our context primes us to think, do, and feel. So let's design contexts that make sustainable well-being inevitable rather than a miracle. Open source life design. which would study a network to distill the necessary and sufficient social technologies for sustainable well-being, and then deploy those in test fields as local village-scale solutions for, one, just good living, right? I mean, you could just stop there. That's enough. But also for further study, refinement, and feedback. So I'm going to sing you one more song, and then we'll have time for questions. What you're saying? Maybe not. Do you want to do questions or no? I thought it was till 5:15. Is that not right? Oh, we are? Okay. Okay. So you could be thinking of your questions.
Got some bubble gum and tight blue jeans. Got starlight in my eyes. My head is full of diamond rings. I don't know nothing about planetary things, but when I'm quiet enough, I hear the canaries sing. We need another Jesus. We need another FDR. We need another Buddha. Rosa Parks, we need another Rumi. We need another Gertrude Stein. We need you, we need me, we need we. I know tractors, I can fix most anything. My dad's a tracker, he can light a fire in the pouring rain. I don't know nothing about planetary things, but I know family sticks together any kind of weather, and we're all family, and we need another Jesus, and we need another FDR, we need another Buddha, Rosa Parks, we need another Rumi, we need another Gertrude Stein, we need you, we need me, we need we. Forever loyal, you will never tread on me. Don't worry about peak oil, my veins are full of gasoline. I don't know nothing about planetary things, but in this foxhole I can hear the canary sing. Yeah, we need another Jesus, we need another FDR, we need another Buddha. And Rosa Parks, we need another Rumi, we need another Gertrude Stein. We need you, we need me, we need we. As I look upon this silent, screaming street, I see a ghost with shadow scars. One by one, at first there's just a few, got their hearts in mason jars. They start to glow, deep and red and slow, until we're blazing like a billion mighty stars. My hat is backwards, I got my pants down to my knees. My family tree's got bullets for its canopy of leaves. But you're my brother, so take shelter from this storm. Don't understand a word you say, but upon just being informed. And we need another Jesus, we need another FDR, we need another Buddha. And Rosa Parks, we need another Rumi, we need another Gertrude Stein. We need you, we need me, we need we. We need you, we need me, 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 we need we. Thank you.